Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavatyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Gukarastvandakaro Vai Rukarastvan Nivartakaha Andhakara Nirodhitvat Gururitya Vidhiyate Sadashiva Samarambha Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So the last two classes of Mandukya Karika. So before we begin a revision of the Mandukya Upanishad, verse number 7 that we will do today, on this auspicious occasion of Diwali, I wish you all a lot of peace, happiness and knowledge. And just wanted to spend a few words explaining the significance of Diwali. So, if you look at the Vedic literature and the Vedic methodology, as you know this very well, the basic facts about life and about us and about God are all given in the Vedas. So the Veda is the source of the knowledge, and it is the expression of Ishvara himself. It is not man-made. It is in fact an expression of the reality of Ishvara. This is the Vedas. But then from that point on, we have a very large and a very diverse sections of literature that are man-made, human-made, and conforms to the knowledge of Vedas. So as you know very well, Smriti, then Puranas, Bhashyas, Tikas, all of those kinds of things. So if we look at that, what you find is that the occasion of Diwali is in fact man-made, human-made. It is not written in the Vedas that there is Diwali. Having said that, let us look at the significance of Diwali. Now, not sure what the origin of that is, but one can say that it is somewhere between Puranas and Itihasa, which is historical perspective, Ramayana and Mahabharata and so on. So somewhere there is in fact a acceptance of Diwali and other big functions also as something which conforms to the truth. And that is really wonderful. It is true. So here Swami Maheshwaranji had made a very interesting point. He says, if you look at Puranas, the various stories of Puranas, all the 18 Puranas, so many beautiful stories about it and so on. The Puranas are also known as Mitha. Mitha is a word for describing the Puranas and the Puranic stories. So, and in fact, mitha is the substance behind the word mithya. And by the way, it is pointed out that the Western myth, all comes from mitha. So, the Puranas are also known as myth. But here is the thing to understand. The myth doesn't mean, just like mithya doesn't mean untrue. This is something to really understand. It doesn't mean it's untrue. It means it is a pointer to the truth. Like for instance, supposing you see a piece of jewelry and you really like it, you say, wow, what a beautiful shining jewelry it is. So this is your first reaction towards being impressed by an ornament. But then what happens is that the ornament is a pointer towards the beauty of gold. So the myth in the Vedic tradition is not untrue. In fact, it is a road to truth. It is in fact a pointer towards the truth. By itself it may not be true, it is dependent truth, but it points out to the truth. So also the Puranas and the myth. So also for Diwali. That it may be a myth. Why? Because it is not part of the Vedas itself, but it is very similar to the truth in the Vedas, and in fact it points towards the truth of the Vedas. So let us see how in the case of Diwali. So as tradition has been in the religious aspect, this is not the spirituality but the religious aspect of Hinduism, is that Diwali could represent one of two things. One is the truth triumphs over untrue. Rama defeats Ravana, and then light defeats darkness. As soon as light comes, darkness disappears. And the other one is the celebration of wealth, Lakshmi. That we are very fortunate and we also are prayerful that may the Devi Lakshmi bless us with all the wealth. So these are the two main aspects. So one is light over darkness, and the other one is the celebration and prayers towards wealth. So let's look at it both standpoint in terms of how it is a myth. So let's take the wealth first. So the fact of the matter is that wealth is not really wealth. Why is it not really wealth? Because wealth is borrowed. Just like if you take a mortgage on your home and the bank really owns it, even if you say, I own this home, you don't really own this home because the bank owns it. And the bank can take it away from you if you stop making the payments. It is not yours. So similarly, all wealth in our life, whether it is material wealth or health or any other kinds of wealth, the Mahalakshmi has so many forms of Varalakshmi, Dhanalakshmi, etc. All of the wealth is temporarily given to you it is not really yours. But there is one wealth. So in that sense, it's a myth. Myth in the sense that it is kind of like an ornament. It's an ornament because yes, it glows, but as a glowing ornament, it points to the glory of gold. So similarly, here also, this is a borrowed wealth, but the reality of the wealth is something which is you yourself. And so the real wealth, which is not borrowed, which is not something which is temporary, is your own Atma Vidya, your own appreciation of who you are. And that has always been yours and always will be yours. Why? Because it is your own Swarupa. No one can take it away. No one can take you away from you. You are you. So this is the one aspect of Diwali. The other aspect of Diwali, very similar to that, is light. And so really speaking, all of our various aspects of the knowledge are temporary. So this is what is called in the Mandukya, in the Mundaka Upanishad, all this is Dve Vidye Veditavye Paracha Aparacha. All Apara Vidya. So knowledge of chemistry, physics, mathematics, medicine, law is all Apara Vidya. It is just there for you to utilize in a very limited way. But it points out to the beauty of Vidya, of light. And that light is your own Swarupa, Swayam Jyotihi. The very knowledge is your very nature of yourself. And so the beauty of knowledge is pointing out to the reality of yourself. So in that sense, we should celebrate Diwali, and our best wishes to all of you. But to the students of Vedanta, the real dhanam, knowledge, wealth, as well as the real light is the discovery that I am in fact the very source of both of them. So I wasn't planning to do all this. This just came to my mind the last few minutes as I was getting ready to do this. So I thought we'll spend a few minutes in discussing that on this very wonderful occasion of Diwali. All my wishes and prayers to you. Om. Okay. So we had covered up to verse number 6 of the Mandukya last week. Excuse me. So let's go over to the very important and the main substance of Mandukya, which is verse number 7. Because what we saw was that up until verse number 7, it was negation. So negation is important in Vedanta because there is no real creation of yourself. So you cannot create something that already is. You can only negate what it is not. Because what it is not is capturing our attention in life. Like, if you are, as you know in the Mandukya, what it says is really all of your experiences are not you. Dream is not you, clearly not you, and Jagrat Avastha is not you, and even Sushupti Avastha is not you. Because it is covered by ignorance. So really all of these things are not you, but are covering you. And so if you remove those, this is what negation means, then there is a kind of a creation of yourself, but it is not a creation, it is really tantamount to negation. So we have seen all that. I'm sure you're familiar with this whole thing. But then, just to make sure that you are clear about what you are, which has been covered up, the verse number 7 is given. So there it says, and this is all relative to the earlier verses. So for example, in verse number 3 it says, Jagrita sthanaha bahish pragyaha. And in verse number 4 it is Swapna sthanaha antaf pragyaha. So here this negation is continued on as a summary in verse number 7, which says Na antaf pragyam, Na bahish pragyam, Na ubhayataf pragyam, Na pragyana ghanam, Na pragyam, Na apragyam. So this first part of this verse number 7 is summarizing what you are not. Na antaf pragyam, na bahish pragyam, etc. So here, if we look at the meanings of all of this, so in the earlier verses also we said that you are not either the experiencer nor the experienced. So we just look at it from that standpoint. Just look at, let's review it. You're not an experiencer. So the experiencer means Vishwa. So you and I, as we are talking now, are different forms of Vishwa. I may be talking to you, I'm experiencing talking, you are listening to me, you are also an experiencer as a listener. So it either doesn't matter which kind of a experiencer, but we are experiencing. Similarly, in dream, we are the experiencer. It's called pragya. And in deep sleep, we are, in the dream state, we are taijasaha. So taijasaha means that it is nothing but your own mind. It is only nothing but there is no solid objects. You see the solid objects as nothing but your own thoughts. Taijasaha. And pragya, prakarshena agya, completely ignorant. So these are the three experiences. And also, so this is what is meant by na antaf pragyam na bahish pragyam. So antaf pragyam means as in dreamer, bahish pragya means as a waker, you are still an experiencer. Na ubhayataf pragyam. Ubhayataf pragya means that it's not as though you are not one of these. Any combination of these you are also not. Like sometimes if you are waking up but you are neither fully awake because you have not assumed the identity of a Vishwa, and neither are you a Tejasa. So you're not really dreaming at that point. You are in some kind of a funny state, only happens for a few seconds. Same thing when you're going to sleep. And in fact, Swami Paramarthananda pointed out really very nice example that many times things like hallucinations can also be, it is neither, an hallucination means a drug-induced hallucination. And you find people that in fact many of the times they do criminal acts under the spell of drugs because he was hallucinating. And so the hallucination is neither dream nor waking, but it's some intermediate stage. That also you are not. So any combination of that, you're not. And so, and pragyana ghanam na pragyam na apragyam. You're not any, so it just means that any one of these, in terms of your being an experiencer, you are not. Then, in the second part of this, he says, adrishyam, avyavaharyam, agrahyam, alakshanam, achintyam, avyapadeshyam. So this is the first part is you're not an experiencer. This part of the verse is you are not an experienced also. The Atma is nothing to be adrishyam, adrishtam. You cannot be seen through, because we have been given certain instruments to ascertain what things are. And so those instruments, you are the wielder of those instruments, so therefore you are not the object of those instruments. Adrishtam. Avyavaharyam. So vyavahara means a transaction. That means that you take something from someone, or you give something to someone, or you change your location. Like for example, somebody says, I'm cleaning this room, can you please move to the other room if you want to avoid the dust? So you are still the same, you haven't given anything to anyone, you haven't taken anything from anyone, but you simply changed location. This is also vyavahara, isn't it? So here, Atma is there when you give, is there when you don't give, it is there when you take, it is there when you don't take, it is there when you are in room number 1, it is there and when you are in room number 2. So by itself, see that the Atma is not transactable. Not transactable. It is really sarvavyapakam. It is there at every place. Like space, akasha. This is why the akasha is a very interesting definition of, close definition of the Atma. So whether you create space, you break down a room, or you increase the room, or you make it dirty or something, the akasha is not affected. It is there in a small room, it is there in a big room, it is there in a room, it is there in a destructed room, open space. Avyavaharyam. Then agrahyam. So this is all the karmendriyas. Adrishtam means that jnana indriyas, it is not. Avyavaharyam means there is no transaction. Agrahya means you cannot see it, you cannot touch it, etc. Alakshanam. that you cannot have, it is beyond inference, because it is not something else that you have to infer. You see, inference is useful when the normal sense organs are not capable of ascertaining the presence of something. If something different from that, then you can say, oh, like something, supposing you found a Diwali gift, a package of sweets in your mailbox. Okay, you found this. So now you didn't see the person who left it there, but you can infer that one friendly person must have left it. You haven't opened the chit which says Happy Diwali to you by yet, so you don't know who it is, but someone has done it. Now, Atma is not a subject of inference, because in this case the person who left the Diwali gift is not there, is not subject to your seeing that person or hearing that person. But you can infer by the absence of this person that this is who it must be. This is called inference, anumana. So alakshanam. Alakshanam means that, so lakshanam means someone has left a package. This is called lakshana. Now who has left the package is subject to inference. Here Atma is never absent. So the person who left the package is absent, and therefore it is subject to inference. But the Atma is always there, alakshana. Alakshana. And therefore achintyam. Both are very similar to that. And abhyapadeshyam. Abhyapadeshyam means it cannot be directly described. Cannot be directly described. It can only be described from its effect. So in the case of ornament and gold, it is different. That example breaks down. It is only good up to a point. This is the beauty of examples, that it can relay some truth to it, but it doesn't mean that it is exactly the same as exemplified. And so the gold you can see. The beauty of the Atma is that you can never see it directly. You can never see it directly. Like, for example, you can never see your own face. Never. Except if you have a reflecting surface that accurately mimics you. If you go to a reflecting surface which is really not very clear, like a muddy set of water, it can only show your silhouette. You cannot show the contours of your face very clearly. But if you see yourself in a mirror, then you can see yourself. So here, Vyapadeshyam means that Avyapadeshyam. Vyapadeshyam means one which can be clearly seen. Like, for example, someone can tell you, hey, look, there is John. So you say, where? Oh, right there. He's sitting on the, like you go to a meeting sort of like a civic meeting in your town hall, and there's lots of people there. And you find that your friend John also is sitting there. So someone can say, hey, look, there is John. So you say, where? There's so many people. Okay, go through the third row. He is the fifth person sitting there. So you count like this. Oh yes, that's right. Atma cannot be shown like this. So Vedas cannot say Atma. Okay, open your eyes, look at the Atma. Cannot do that. Why? Because the person who is looking itself is the Atma. So it says the only way to do that is through Lakshana Vritti. Only through Lakshana Vritti. Lakshana Vritti means a recognition still has to come. Because the problem is that we are the Atma, but we don't know it. So it's still unknown, no question about that. And it still is subject to be known, no question about that. How? Through the Lakshana Vritti. Lakshana Vritti is exactly what we are doing now. Not this, not this, not this, not this, not this. Then the one who is the very essence of seeing, the very essence of hearing, the essence of doing vyavahara, one which is beyond what you are seeing, but not absent from it. So this we will take up in a little bit more detail in a minute. But for now, not really directly vyapadeshyam, so it's called avyapadeshyam. Okay. So here, let's see if I want to point out at this point. Yeah, so let's look at it this way. So when you say something is beyond it, what does it really mean? What it really means is, it is so when you say Turiyam, so the Turiyam is not a fourth state. Actually, the word Turiyam means the fourth. So that's why it is important to understand it is called a fourth, but it is not a fourth in the classical sense. Like, for example, you had the waker is 1, dreamer is number 2, sleeper is number 3, and Turiyam is number 4. So it's not like that. As you know, I'm just revising, you know all of this. So it is not a fourth state in that way. But it still is disassociated from the others. Okay? How? How can you say it is disassociated? So take a nirvikalpa samadhi. Nirvikalpa samadhi. Nirvikalpa samadhi means there is no vikalpa. We are actually going to go through this in more detail in the next class in Rigdrishya Viveka. But I'll bring in that example here to point out that Atma is not associated, is disassociated. How? So if you look at a nirvikalpa samadhi, there is no vikalpa, there is no changes, there is no form, you just are. So taking the Patanjali view of this, step by step, you go through pranayama and then dhyanam, and then you have samadhi. So there you are not cognizant of any thoughts in your mind. You are in a thoughtless state. And in that sense, both the nirvikalpa samadhi and deep sleep are very similar to each other. Samadhi we may not be adept at as a yoga because we have not done the yogic discipline. It is possible to do. But if you and I have not really experienced that, we can at least say that every night we have a nirvikalpa samadhi in the form of deep sleep. Okay? So let's look at deep sleep. And also the samadhi. They're both equivalent as far as this point is concerned. Now, isn't it true that in both cases, in nirvikalpa samadhi as well as in sushupti avastha, you are not disassociated from the thoughts. The thoughts have just gone into a seed state, still connected to you. You cannot say they are no longer connected to me. No. Because if you go to sleep at night time, then all of your day's experiences are suspended. They're no longer there. But they don't disappear. Your experiences will come back to you. Right? It's not that my experiences will come to you next morning or that your experiences will come to me. Our own experiences will re-arise. And so what that means is what? That the laya, so the nirvikalpa samadhi and also the deep sleep is not disconnected from the other states. The only connection is that, the only thing is that sometimes they are active and sometimes they are inactive. You see, that's the point I'm making. And so they are not disconnected. Then we say that that Turiya is not connected to the other three states. How is that possible? If you say that in deep sleep and in nirvikalpa samadhi, even though it appears to be disassociated, but it is not, and now you say that Turiya is truly disconnected, how? Vedanta says it can be disassociated in an ingenious way. Ingenious way means by knowledge and by understanding. There is no other way. It is definitely disconnected, but it is disassociated. How? And so here Mandukya gives as we have seen before also, Mandukya gives a unique recipe for understanding. And the recipe for understanding is that you are not associated with any of the states because they are not on the same level as you. You can be associated with something on the same level as that person. So for instance, a table can be associated with the earth because the earth, the flatness of this room supports the table and the table is sitting on the earth. So there is some association. But you do not have any association with things that are not on the same level as you. You don't have any association with dreams. Even though the dreams occurred in you, but you have nothing to do with it. You never anticipated it. You are not affected after it leaves, except for a few seconds you say, wow, that was a bad dream. That was a strange dream. Just some little memory, that's it. After that, does it matter to you? No. And so there's no association with things on a different level altogether. You cannot say that there is an association of a wave and the ocean. So for a wave and the ocean, there can be an association between two waves, but not between water. You ask water, are you this wave? He says, I guess, you can call me. But I'm not really just the wave. The wave comes and goes. I am still there. So therefore, the Turiya is not really associated with the three states of experiences. It is completely separate from it. It has nothing to do with it. And so, and the consequence of that, so this question is, na anta pragyana bahish pragyana ubhayata pragyana pragyana ganam na pragyamna apragyam avyapade adrishtam avyavaharyam agrahyam alakshanam achintyam avyapadeshyam. Then, so what is the implication of this? Then the positive aspects are called ekatmya pratyayasaram prapancha upashanamam shantam shivam advaitam. So let's take up ekatmya pratyayasaram. So what does it mean? Ekatma pratyayasaram. Atma pratyaya means so you should see, this is an important thing for you to see. We've already discussed it again. This is just a revision. But if you go back to the notes and other places, so I said before that it is true that even though I am the Atma, I don't have recognition of it. Right? You may or may not, but up to before a certain point, you didn't have a recognition. And so the recognition has to take place. This is what is called vritti jnanam. Vritti jnanam. You are the jnanam. You are the very... So it's interesting really to see that when someone tells you, do you know self-knowledge, you have complete, clear self-knowledge? So you say no. First of all, before studying Vedanta, you didn't even know what self-knowledge means. Now we have a new problem. See, the old problem was we didn't know who I was. Now we have a new problem, which says that Vedanta says that you are free, but I don't know that. And how am I going to know that? This is our problem. We say when I don't know it because that's even worse in some cases. You know, if you say I'm not wealthy at all, then I can get used to the fact that I'm very poor, I don't have any wealth. What can you do? What cannot be cured must be endured. But if someone says, you know what, you've got $1 million in the bank, and you say, where? Oh, you've got to open all these keys and so on and so forth. Where do I find the keys? Well, I'm not sure. We'll have to talk to you about that. Now my discomfort grows even more. I have $1 million, but I cannot tap it. So similarly here also, my knowledge of the Atma is not clear. And I get anxious about it. In the autobiography of Paramahansa Yoga, many of the acharyas, not just this one that was coming to my mind, but in many of the acharyas, they go through a biography that how it was really not pleasant to know that I am the very freedom, but I am not able to get it. So the reason I'm bringing it up is this is called vritti jnanam. So vritti still has to occur. When the vritti jnanam comes in, then you say, oh my God, I can't believe it. How did I miss it all the time? So vritti has to be created through some means. And the means is really what we are talking about. You do all these negative, you do all the neti, and you focus in and you say, you see what is left? It is not zero. It is the very source of everything else. Don't you see it? And so if this whole teaching works, all of a sudden my mind becomes, and he says, yes, I see it. That is called Atma Pratyaya. Atma Pratyaya means a vritti about the Atma, or the vritti about Brahman, one and the same thing. So some cognitive vritti takes place and he says, yes, that's right. And so Ekatma Pratyaya Saram means, if this is clear, then we can put all the elements together. Ekatma Pratyaya Saram means, Eka means here continuous, undisturbed. Means that with the practice of meditation, I find that first of all, I don't go to the Ekatma Pratyaya. I don't go to Atma Pratyaya at all. Then the Atma Pratyaya comes and goes. I get glimpses of the fact that I am whole. But it is immediately disturbed by my practice of saying, what's for dinner tonight? What am I going to do with this? I have to pay my bills. So the Atma Pratyaya is kind of lost in the pursuit of something silly. But if I keep on working at it, then it becomes ekatma pratyaya. Ekatma means alone. This is what I'm able to focus in on. And I can do it at will. That then there is the outside vyavahara doesn't make any sense, because I can do vyavahara, but it's easy for me to go back to atma pratyaya. And saram means that this is in fact the essence of atma, is the fact that while you're alive, your atma pratyaya becomes prevalent, not hit and miss. So this is what is meant by ekatma pratyaya saram. And then from there comes prapancha upashamam. Prapancha upashamam means you are no longer focused on the changes that are occurring in you. This is what prapancha means. Prakarshena panchaha means these 5 organs of jnanam, 5 organs of action, prana, all these, this is combined together. This dance in front of you is called prapancha. It's kind of like, supposing you have the identity of a wave in the ocean and you're troubled. You are troubled. Why? Because there is so much activity around you. And you are being threatened by your bigger waves that will devour you. And people are going back and forth trying to get some advantage. And you feel inferior because others are stronger than you. All these kinds of things. This is happening. This is what is called prapancha. But if the guru wave comes in and says, wait a second, why are you troubled? He says, what do you mean, why am I troubled? Can't you see my situation? I am going to disappear soon, and while I'm alive also I'm being bothered by my neighbors, neighboring waves. So he says, please, please, please. You are not a wave, you are the ocean. What? Yes. So similarly here also, the prapancha upashamam means, this is I find this meditation to be very, very useful. That you see yourself as the ocean of consciousness. And for a little while for some time, you may be apparently associated with your body and mind and prana, etc. But you should now see that you are the very nature of consciousness. And by that, when your mind appreciates it, it becomes quiet. Oh my gosh. That worry, that concern, like a wave has, once it realizes, oh my God, I am the water, and not only me as a wave, but all the other waves are also nothing but my expressions. Oh my goodness. This is what is called prapancha upashamam. This is shantam. You become tranquil. Purnam. It becomes full. And it becomes Shivam. Advaitam. You are You feel fulfilled. You are the very blessing. You are no different from Shivam. So this is the positive recognition. This is what's called Vritti Jnanam. And the Vritti Jnanam depends upon negation. This is what the whole verse is all about. So he says, Chaturtham Manyate. Chaturtham Manyate means that it is called the fourth. Turiyam is called the fourth. Manyante means it is just called that. It is not the fourth really. It is the fourth in the sense that it is not prapancha. It is the very content of the prapancha. So you're not in, so the waking state in fact itself is nothing but your own reflection. Like your own dreaming state is your own reflection. But you are not the dreamer. Just like when you wake up, you have nothing to do with the dreamer. Similarly, and when you wake up to this knowledge, you will no longer have anything to do with being a waker, as a jiva. Absolutely nothing to do with it. It'll just disappear from it. That is the Shivam, Advaitam. Chaturtham Manyante. Sa Atma Savigyeya. Savigyeya means that it should be known. It is worth knowing. Anyway, I have a couple of other things I wanted to discuss. So let me close the class and then I'll spend some time talking about a couple of other things. Om Swasti Prajabhyah Paripalayantam Nyayena Margena Mahisha Go Brahmanebhya Shubhamastu Nityam Loka Samastha Sukhino Bhavantu Kale Varshatu Parjanyaha Prithvi Sasya Shalini Desho Yam Shobharahitaha Brahmana Santu Nirbhayaha Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Satkamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Rityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So normally I will take my laptop out and see if there are any questions and so on. But what I wanted to do today was to address a couple of questions that people had sent me on email. And so perhaps both of them, and if time permits, otherwise at least one today and one next time. So one of the students wrote to me recently that he's very bothered by the conduct of certain people around him. And I think he referred to it, I'm not absolutely certain, but he referred to it as some relatives in India who are very dishonest and have usurped some property and are clearly criminal in their way they are approaching. And he's bothered by the fact that they're all doing well, having, you know, I'm exaggerating, forgive me, the person who wrote to me if I'm not exactly sure, but I'm just giving you a picture, that they are just enjoying things that didn't belong to them. And they might have confiscated some property and so on and so forth, and they're having all fun. And he says, I'm bothered by this because in Vedanta, we are taught that Just there is a karma and there is a karma phala, and here there is a papa karma, and yet you are enjoying it, and other people who have done some, who are following the laws are not enjoying. And he says, I don't understand this. Please explain. A good question. I think that many of us can relate to that. So, a couple of things to talk about that. One important thing which has helped me also to address this question, which was provided by Swami Maheshananji. So, two aspects. So, one is that in general, the karma and karma phala does work. It works. This is what our experiences are, and this is in fact what is the order of the universe as given by Ishvara. So it's not as though nothing works. It all works. So if people are doing certain things, then chances are that they will get the results. Now, it may be that if the results are not in keeping with what they thought they had done, there might be some other actions in the past which were not considered by you, but Ishvara's order cannot forget it. So it is really a mistake in your expectations, not in Ishvara's result. It's not as though something is broken. No. Nothing is this. The results are perfect. This is point number one. But this does not explain the discomfort that one feels, that how is it possible that an obvious criminal person is enjoying at the expense of a person who's done good deeds. It doesn't completely explain. Yes, I understand that there is some direct relationship between karma and karma phala. This is where Swami Maheshananji's explanation of the Maya Shakti comes in very usefully. So let me, in the short term that I have, may run out of time. So I'm just going to express it within the next 3 to 4 minutes and let it go at that. Then we can revisit it later. So Swamiji says that the predictability of karma and karma phala works up to a point. But do not expect it in your mind to work perfectly. You don't expect it. Why not? Why can't I expect it? So, Swamiji says, there is always a case where it does not fully explain. So the examples he had given was that supposing there is a very good doctor, he's an expert at a disease. Everybody goes to him. He says, if you want a second opinion, he's the expert at that. He may be able to treat 99 out of 100 people. There is one person that he says, I don't know what happened. I don't know what my recipe of health does not work. So this is what is called anirvachaniyatvam of Maya. It's possible that there are things that appear to be not working that have nothing to do with this straight equation between karma and karma phala. He gave this example. He says that in India, all these awards that are given, Bharat Ratna and this, that or the other, sometimes are given to undeserving people. There's a guy, I think he gave this example, who had plagiarized somebody else's work and published it, and he got some big award, and the original person never was neglected. Happens. And the example of dream is a very beautiful one. There, a dead person appears to you as a live person. So therefore, to summarize what Swamiji was saying, do not put all of your stock in the way the world works. See, that's the point I'm making. That's the point that Swamiji is making. He says, you should be happy that generally it works. If there are enough people that vote, then Trump can be defeated. Generally it is true. It is true. That water boils at 100 degrees, generally it is true. That there is winter that follows summer, generally it is true. So don't extend the generality of what works to something that must be perfect. And then you start to disbelieve Ishvara. How can this person be such a bad person? What kind of a rule is this, and so on? You are just hurting yourself. Why should you? What should you do? You have an uneasy peace with Anatma. So this is all Anatma, this is all part of the Maya. It's not perfect. It is like the dream. It's like the award being given to the wrong person. It is being, somebody's usurping your property. Don't spend a lot of time on that. Instead, because what happens is, I want the work to be very perfect with me. I'm raising my voice a little bit. I'm not accusing that you are doing that. All I'm saying is that you should be happy that generally speaking it is okay, but now you should put your attention to Ekatma Pratyaya Saram, Prapancha Upashamam, Shivam Dvaitam Advaitam. Because Maya is anirvachaniyam. At any time what can happen, don't depend on it. So this is the second point that he made, which I think is very useful, and that would be my advice to people to do so. So that is the first question, and I'm willing to, certainly if it is not clear, discuss it further. But then the second person that had asked me for some review, I'm running out of time, so I will do that in the last class of Mandukya Karika next week. And then, as you know, we don't have a class at Thanksgiving. And when we restart, it will be on Brahma Sutra. You've already had an email from me. So if you're interested, please send me an application for that. And we will start a new text from December 5. Okay, thank you. Om.